Good afternoon, Kitchissippi. It is Monday, April the 1st. This is a video version of the Kitchissippi Ward newsletter, number 384, going out on this long weekend. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Remember that you can find all of the links and more information in the newsletter. Sign up at kitchissippiward.ca to get more information. Jumping right into it, my pop-up office hours this week are going to be held on Thursday, April the 4th at the Second Cup that is at the corner of Holland and Wellington. Those will be held from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. Pop-up office hours are a chance to come by, chat with me one-on-one anytime during those hours without appointment about whatever is important to you. So hopefully we'll see you on Thursday, April the 4th. At the Committee of Adjustment, there is a hearing that's coming up on April the 3rd. There's an application at 304 Fairmont. That's just a severance in anticipation of some future development. I've spoken with the owner. He doesn't have any specific plans at the moment, but is getting ready for some future development there. At 212 Carruthers, there's a number of variances that are being sought associated with a low-rise apartment building. City staff have actually asked for an adjournment on this one. The planning department's comments, and this is great, are actually part of the application file that is now available online. City staff have requested an adjournment, suggesting that an official plan amendment might be needed. The height limit there is 11 meters. They're looking to go to 12 point, I'm sorry, it's in here somewhere, but like 12.5 or something. So that would go above the height limit. That height limit is specified in the secondary plan. So city staff and the owner looking to sort out whether or not an official plan amendment would be required. Stay tuned on that one. A little further up the street at 171 Armstrong and 277 Carruthers, the owner is seeking a number of variances associated again with a low-rise apartment building. Staff have asked for an adjournment of this one as well to determine whether or not some further variances might be required. And at 182 Daniel, the owner is seeking a variance to permit a front-facing garage that would contravene the streetscape character analysis that is required for infills. Their city staff are hoping for an adjournment so that they can look for a redesign to try to retain the tree that is on the property. Some additional development around there has worked thus far to retain one of those trees. City staff are hoping to rework this one in order to do the same. I also have decisions that came from the March 20th Committee of Adjustment meeting. At 81 Spadina, variances for a two-story coach house garage were approved, and the application at 370 Athlone was adjourned. City staff want to work through that one some more to address some comments that they made in the pre-consultation phase in order to ensure that if and when the variances are granted, that there won't be any further changes. Some other news that's in the newsletter this week: the building at Graham Spry at 250 Lanark has been approved by the federal government to be continued to use as a overnight shelter until May 31st. So the license that the federal government had given to the city to have that shelter use in there expired on March 31st, yesterday, but that has been extended until May 31st. Thus far, I've heard a few minor complaints here and there, nothing that is so severe as to warrant my opposition to the continued use of that building. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. As I'm sure you've heard, street sweeping is underway in the ward. There are a number of locations in Hintonburg and Wellington Village that over the next couple of weeks will receive their concentrated street sweeping. Concentrated sweeping isn't done everywhere. That's when you'll see the signs go up, parking is banned, they'll tow the cars, and they'll do the street all in one go. Most of the city is not done like that. As in past years, I will suggest to city staff areas that should be potentially done as a concentrated street sweeping. It's not a political decision. They adjust it a little bit every year, but if you want to send me your rationale for why you believe your street should replace another one, by all means, I will pass that on to the city. We're early, obviously, this year to get the street sweeping done. Speaking as a cyclist, it's been wonderful to get those streets done. The city is conducting a tree planting survey right now. If you go to the link that's in the newsletter, which you can subscribe to at kitchissippiward.ca, you can take part in a first survey. The tree planting strategy that the city has is being looked at as part of the urban forest management plan. Take that survey online. There's an open house that is coming up on April the 23rd to take a look at the upcoming rebuilds of Clare and Dovercourt. That is, I believe, Clare from Churchill to Hilson, Dovercourt from Churchill to Tweedsmuir. The first open house will take a look at some of the preliminary plans for how the street will be rebuilt. In my newsletter this week and on the blog, I have a post that has updated my CMHC tracker. Every month, the CMHC publishes numbers for across Canada, talking about how many units of housing have been completed, how many are under construction, and how many have been started. I isolate the Ottawa numbers from there to make it a little bit easier to read. Month after month, I put those numbers on my blog. For the housing numbers that I've put up this month that reflect the February numbers, obviously still very slow in terms of housing starts. Only 800 units were completed in the first 2 months of 2024. Interest rates, labor costs, etc., some real headwinds in the way of the private sector building housing. The Hintonburg Community Association is hosting, along with Somerset West Community Health Center and also with Rita Wood Addiction Services, a session on substance use in our neighborhood. That's going to be held on Thursday, April the 11th. I'm guessing you can get more information about that at hintonburg.com. I also have links in the newsletter. Take a look at that. I'm really grateful to the HCA for hosting a session that talks about substance use here in Kitchissippi Ward, an opportunity to learn more about that, develop a bit better understanding of what substance use in our ward is and how that can be lived with. Really exciting. I am doing again this year the Show Tune Showdown. That's going to be held later this month. That's held by the Tone Cluster Queer Choir. I'm going to be a judge. There are several teams who are going to be participating. It's a mix of Broadway musical, always a very energetic evening. I'm looking forward to being a judge for that. My newsletter's got information on how you can purchase tickets. Also, a gentleman named Don Sproul is hosting a couple of workshops with respect to environmental considerations at Dovercourt Rec Center. Climate change, there are 2 dates in April to choose from, Thursday, April the 11th, or Tuesday, April the 23rd for that Citizens Climate Change Workshop. I have information in the newsletter about how you can register. Space is very limited, so if it sounds like it's something of interest, go to those links as soon as you can and sign up. We have a busy legislative agenda at City Hall coming up tomorrow. That's Tuesday. The Finance Committee is going to be meeting. We've got a fairly beefy agenda. We're going to be taking a look at the tax rates that stem from the budget that we've recently passed. There are the proposed BIA levies on the agenda. But much more importantly, I think, is the procurement model for Lansdowne Park. A bit of press around that about how we're going to actually procure the new Northside stands, the new event center. That'll be a discussion that happens at FinCo tomorrow. There's also going to be the new brownfield and community improvement programs, economic development SIP. So that'll be a discussion. They're also looking at proceeding with a number of the brownfield grants that have been paused in our ward. Those are at 1050 Somerset. That's the old Dollarama at Breeze Hill, as well as at 1619 Carling Avenue. That's up at the corner of Churchill. Both of those had applied for brownfield grants before a pause was put on the program, and those are now moving forward through the legislative process. On Wednesday, City Council is going to meet. I don't anticipate a particularly fireworks-filled meeting. A lot of workaday stuff, a lot of stuff that is recommended for approval by the various different committees that have already looked at it. Importantly for our ward, there is 1806 Scott, that's just up the street from me, where the owner is seeking a rezoning in order to be allowed to build a 4-story low-rise apartment building. Planning and Housing Committee approved that, or recommended it for approval last week, including with my support, and so that will go to the council vote this week. There is also a motion that I've brought here in our ward to demolish the buildings, to allow those to be demolished at the corner of Tyndall and Holland, 181, 183 Holland. Those buildings have been up for a long time. They're not in good shape. They need to come down, and I've brought forward a motion in order to bypass the usual demolition permission process. If there is any fireworks on Wednesday, I expect it will be around a complicated file on La Marche in Orleans, where the developer was seeking development zoning permissions under the old planning rules, under the old official plan rules, when they would have been allowed to have 9 stories, which is what they were proposing. We have since determined, or the city has since determined, that in fact this file has to proceed under new official plan rules. That new official plan rules constrains the height on part of that property to 4 stories. That was a close vote at the Planning and Housing Committee meeting, and I expect there will be some further discussion when that gets to council this week. And then finally, I think one of the other motions to highlight is one coming from Councillor Plant in order to create a registry of problematic properties. So these are vacant properties that attract a lot of bylaw calls, other calls, property standards issues. Councillor Plant wants to recreate the Edmonton model, where those properties are put online on a publicly available website, along with a number of resources to help residents to navigate the bureaucracy when it comes to things like property standards complaints and what powers the city has or doesn't. We do have a number of these sort of vacant problematic properties in our ward. I don't anticipate that if this passes, and I think it will, that we'll have a lot of new tools to deal with those, but it will at least make those public, and sunshine is the best way of making something transparent. Also on April 4th, we had the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. That one is going to be a fairly brief meeting. They are receiving a report on the approach to warranted but unfunded traffic signals. I know in our ward we're going to have that issue moving forward. It generated some press this morning about a unfunded stoplight that's at the corner of, or supposed to be at the corner of Fluellen and I believe Eagleson. So a little bit of press around that. I'm sure that will be watched. And then the Built Heritage Committee is meeting on April the 9th. That meeting will have the 3rd round of bulk removals from the Heritage Registry. There are dozens of these properties in our ward that are going to be removed. This is part of a strategy that is being deliberately pursued by our heritage staff. We have a deadline that was imposed by Bill 109 a couple of years ago of the end of this year in order to remove heritage registry properties from the registry by the end of the year. Anything that is still on the list and undesignated at the end of this year won't be eligible to be re-included anytime in the next 5 years. And the properties that we are really interested in, and I want to thank the residents who have been working with my office, working with Heritage to identify what those are, will remain on it. So while it looks like a big atomic bomb going off with respect to our heritage properties, it is part of a deliberate strategy, and the most important properties, we continue to try to get those designated by the end of this year. There's a number of heritage applications and permits there as well. Properties on George, Rideau, in Britannia Village. Should be a very busy meeting. As a result of Bill 109, that has become a very busy committee as we strive to meet the deadlines. And then finally, the Planning and Housing Committee, we meet again on April the 10th. There's some bylaw amendments on March, Weeping Willow, Hazeldean, and Gloucester. There's going to be consideration of a motion that Councillor Plant gave notice of last week with respect to creating an acquisition fund to acquire housing. That'll be an interesting discussion when that arrives. But but nothing in our ward on that next Planning and Housing Committee agenda. Kitchissippi, it is an absolutely gorgeous day. I know the weather is just keeps getting better and better. I hope you have a chance to get out and enjoy it. And I will see you next week. Have a great afternoon.